Okay. All right, everybody. So with that said, welcome everybody to the IKI SG Small Grants Opportunity Information Session by SSN. SSN are very happy to have you here. And this information session aim is just to introduce everybody to the program as well as to the call itself. It is very focused on what to do, how to do it, etc. So we'll go through all of the elements of that just now. Just to kick off the session, I thought we could just start with a few welcomes and introductions, just to introduce you to who we are. My name is Rebecca Henderson. I'm the grants manager on the IKI Small Grants program. And we are also joined here by some other SSNers. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for joining in here. So essentially what we're going to go through today is an overview of the program, talking about the background aims, the overall overview of the call for expression of interest, and then we'll move through to how the application process works. And then we'll also discuss key eligibility, exclusions, due diligence, all that kind of stuff, so that you can understand what the key considerations and requirements are for grantees. And we'll also go through how we're going to be assessing you guys, and then looking at the key elements of innovation, collaboration, and participation. At the end of the session, we'll have a question and answer session where you'll be free to pose any questions that haven't been answered throughout the session. So because we have a short amount of time today, I do just ask that if you have got questions as we go through the presentation, please note them down. You are welcome to also join the Q&A. If you look at the top of your screen, you'll see a Q&A button, and you are welcome to ask questions in there. We also have a chat function, so you can make comments, etc. there. I'll be focusing on presenting today, and Stacey will be assisting me. Thank you, Stacey, for jumping in with answering, with just noting down key questions, etc. And then after the session, we will send you a video of this and the presentation itself. And we'll also answer any key questions and answers that came out of the session as well. So there'll be further communication after that. Is everybody okay with the process? If you are happy, you can react. You can do a thumbs up. You can do a thumbs down. I don't know if you can. Clap. All right, just to show everyone's available. Everyone's listening. Okay, great. All right, everybody. So without further ado, then let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about the program. So the IKI Small Grants Opportunity is delivered by South North in South Africa. We are an international non-profit NGO organization, and we're based in the Western Cape in South Africa. We are really here to advance locally driven solutions to climate change, biodiversity loss, and sustainable development. And in terms of the program, we are essentially a granting intermediary. We are receiving grants from IKI, and essentially we are distributing those grants out. So in terms of the grant management, we are responsible for the design, implementation, and reporting of the program, as well as selecting grantees, ensuring that the work that they've promised to do will be delivered, overseeing management of the grants and the program itself, providing oversight, and then reporting back to IKI on the outcomes of the program. As part of our core responsibilities, we are also responsible for capacity development for our grantees, and we are also responsible for the research component or the learning outputs of the program. So just a disclaimer here, IKI and GIZ are the key partners in this program. They are supporting the program. They are distributing the grants to us. So they are supporting the program to strengthen local solutions for effective climate action. So the IKI Small Grants is funded by the Federal Ministry of Environment, Climate Action, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and is run, I cannot pronounce that German word. Stacey, if Stacey says, have you practiced saying that word yet? Okay, so it's run by the Federal Ministry for Environment, Climate Action, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety. If you can say that in German, extra points for you. So let's move forward now to the overall program. So why are we delivering this program? What's the point of the IKI Small Grants? So we really came aware of the problem of invasive clearing, that it is really financially sustainable. It happens mainly on a once-off basis, which leads to new problems. And we have lack of coordination amongst all the stakeholders that are active in the value chain. So in terms of looking at it through a wider lens, we know that within the Western Cape and specifically within the fynbos ecosystems, increasing wildfire risk and loss of diversity under a changing climate means that sustained clearing, maintenance, and ecological restoration of the fynbos ecosystems has become incredibly critical. So how do we aim to address that? We are going to put together the program through a innovative grants mechanism, which will allow you guys access to financial and capacity support. We are going to be working to collaborate in a coordinated ecosystem of actors within that value chain. And through that, we are going to demonstrate viable approaches and models for alien clearing, plant management, and fynbos restoration. As an outcome of that, what we're hoping to do is to support local ecosystem livelihood opportunities, especially for women. So how are we going to approach the program? So what we are looking to do is to support a financially sustainable and coordinated approach to the removal and long-term maintenance of woody invasive plants. That includes roycrans, wattle, eucalyptus, etc. We're also looking to support approaches to the beneficiation and productive use of the cleared biomass. This could be either through fuel wood, chipping, composting, biochar, and other end products. And the final thing that we're looking to support approaches to is the recovery and rewilding of indigenous fynbos ecosystems. So that could be fynbos nurseries, beekeepers, or other nature-based or ecosystem-based activities for livelihood income generation. So what would we trying to achieve throughout the whole program? Really, by the end of the program, what we're trying to do is to use the innovative grants mechanism to leverage a sustainable and scalable business model that can harness social economic development. So that's really what the whole program scope is about. If you want to find more information, there are links at the end of this presentation with links to all the key documents. So our program webpage is on our website, and we also have a fact sheet available that you can find at the end of the presentation. So let's look at what a successful program would look like. What do we want to achieve in this program, and what are we going to be looking at measuring through the program? So essentially what we'd like to see is independent, which is non-grant-based revenues for grantees being increased. We also have a goal of restoring or under contract to restore 600 hectares of fynbos ecosystems. We would also like to see increased participation from landowners, and that would be measured through the amount of clearing contracts and restoration contracts that we have with our landowners in the area, and the inclusion of women in the value chain. That will result in an increased confidence in the sustainability of alien invasive plant clearing approaches and management in the implementation area. All of that information and everything that we do throughout the program is really going to feed into one of the core elements of the program, which is our research and knowledge product output. So by the end of the program, we will be producing a scientific journal article, a published report, a summary report for landowners and enterprises, and a policy briefing to capture the key lessons and recommendations from the program. So that's really what we're trying to achieve in the program. So let's think how we are going to get there. So the key elements of the program really consist around, as you will have noticed, these themes coming up already, locally driven collaboration. So what we're trying to do is to co-design in a collaborative way solutions with the grantees and ecosystem actors that respond to the local ecological, economic, and social realities. We are also looking at supporting sustainable institutions and enterprises. We will be supporting capacity development and enabling employment opportunities, and also ensuring continuity past the project's timeframe. Through the program, we'll be looking at developing a sustainable business model for long-term clearing and management. And during the program, we'll be developing, testing, refining, and implementing different models or ways of working that can really reach the goals of the program. And of course, because we're talking about collaborating with different actors, what we're trying to do is to create linkages for you guys. And that is for the SMMEs as well as NGOs working in the space, that they can have access to networks, etc., to continue to grow their livelihood-based opportunities. The ecosystem-based livelihood opportunities, pardon me. And of course, once again, gathering learning so that we can document the approaches, the results, and the impacts, and that we can produce knowledge products that can support further learning, replication, and scaling. Right, so that's quite a lot of information. I understand that if you haven't had a look at our webpage or been through the documents before, that's quite a lot to absorb. But essentially for you guys as potential grantees, what level of support are you going to get? What are you going to get out of this program? So of course, we are wanting to specifically support all of our grantees by providing them not just with granting resources, but also to help them grow as organizations or institutions or SMMEs, and to provide opportunities for collaboration and co-learning, to strengthen your role within the landscape, and to contribute to long-term biodiversity restoration. So that said, we can move now into the actual call for expression of interest. We are making good time, so that's good to hear. All right, everybody. So in terms of the grants, there are two grant categories available. We have our sub-grants and our micro-grants. So these grants will be issued to organizations that are based within and active in the Hessequa Municipal region, that's in the Western Cape of South Africa. We do have a focus within that space on the Cape limestone fynbos ecosystem. So if you are already active in Hessequa, if you are doing any of the activities which we will discuss in below, and if you already have a sort of if you already have activities in that area, then you are probably well positioned to be here today. Unfortunately, if you are based in another country or in Gauteng or somewhere really far away from Hessequa, this program does have a specific location. So please bear that in mind when considering to apply. So in terms of the grantee types, let's just look at the sub-grants that are available. So for sub-grants, this is larger funding pots that are available and larger responsibilities, but obviously larger sort of activities as well. So the type of grantees that we're looking at for the sub-grants are going to be NGOs, NPOs, and these could be conservancies as well, or community-based organizations. You could apply as an individual or also in a consortium approach. Who are subgrantees? So we've termed these guys aggregating entities. That means that their real responsibility is to coordinate and collaborate and deliver. So you need to have a strong local presence. You need to have established relationships already with landowners and clearing teams. And you need to really be involved in coordinating and delivering alien invasive plant management activities such as clearing, maintenance, or restoration. There are between 1 and 3 grants that are going to be distributed under this grant. Each grantee will be able to access approximately 100 to 200,000 euros per grant, and that is depending on their capacity as well as their scale of ambition and contribution to the program. So when considering how much you are applying for, please consider these things when you are putting together your budget. The micro grants are smaller grants, and these are more focused around people that are working in the beneficiation or restoration space. So the kind of grantees that we will be onboarding will be SMMEs, again, community-based organizations. You could even be a cooperative. You could even be an NPO. And so the scope here is a little bit wider to allow for different kinds of entities that are conducting these activities to apply. So these organizations are considered value-adding entities. So what value are they adding to the value chain in terms of once those biomass has been cut down, can we remove it? Are you doing something with that? Are you creating fuel wood, biochar? We've gone through all of that. Are you doing ecosystem-based livelihoods? That is really where your grant would sit with you. They're going to be between 3 and 5 grants issued, and each grantee will receive approximately 50,000 euros per grant. These are just wide sort of amounts. We are not specifying this is the exact amount you have to pay, you have to apply for, because we really want you to think firstly around what do you want to do in the program, what will your contribution be, and what will your needs be. We will be assessing all of those, and I'll discuss how our assessment process works later. I just want to point out that as SSN and IKI and GIZ, we are very committed to supporting access to equitable grant opportunities, and we welcome all applications from previously disadvantaged or marginalized groups such as women, youth, etc. All right. So now let's move forward to how the call of expression of interest process is going to work. So in order to apply, there are essentially 2 steps. The first step is the expression of interest, and the second step is the sandboxing phase. In terms of the expression of interest, we've also got 2 steps for you. So all you have to remember is 2 steps, 2 steps. In terms of applying, you will basically go and complete an online form. That online form, there is a link for that at the end of the presentation as well. And this form helps you to fill out information such as your basic organizational information. Who are you? What's your registered address? What's your name? All that kind of stuff. Then we go through a confirmation of eligibility. So we're trying to use the form to really screen out and not waste people's time to go through an application process. So if there are questions that you are going to answer no to under the eligibility section, then unfortunately you would not be eligible to complete the application process. You are welcome to contact us, and we can certainly talk through things with you and see if there's scope for you. But please note we've specifically done this to avoid you wasting your time spending a long time applying and us having to go back and reverting, etc. So please note that those certain requirements are certainly requirements. All right. The other thing that you would have to be completing is a brief description of your work within the scope of the program. So what do you do? Who do you work with? How does your work impact people? Those sort of things. You'll also be asked to provide a description of your contribution towards the aims of the program. And if you want to think about those things, you can go back to the beginning of the presentation and think, right, what kind of innovations are we doing? How are we part of a value chain? How are we supporting biodiversity restoration? What relationships do we have? So let's think about all those things as we are applying. You'll note that the character availability is quite small, and that's because we don't need a dissertation from each of you guys in terms of your work. We know it's hard to reduce these things. I've been on the receiving end of this a lot, so I know. But we really just want a brief summary from you guys so that we can understand who you are, what value you would bring, what you need, and also if you have any innovative ideas in terms of reaching a place where we can reduce costs of clearing or innovate around biomass, all those kinds of things. So within your scope of work, do you have any great ideas that can contribute? And finally, you'd be asked to put together a rough budget. So this is an indicative budget. We don't need final budgets. That will be worked out in the sandboxing phase, but we would like to be able to see that you can put a budget together, and also that you know what kind of work you are doing and how those kinds of things would need financial support or capacity on that side. So just be aware that these questions are not just being asked to gather information, but to test your capacity as an organization as well. Then once you've submitted the online form, you will then go ahead and submit your supporting documents. So these are the required documents you need to send us, and you can send them to the ikisg@southsouthnorth.org. You'll need to provide a proof of legal registration with your address on it. We'll need to see that you have a proof of a registered bank account within South Africa. We'll also need to see evidence of your good standing, and this could be your registration or tax compliance certificates, etc. The indicative budget, and one simple proof of your activity. This could be a case study, a social media post, an annual report. We don't have a specific requirement because we know that different organizations or entities will be at different levels. So as long as you can show us a photo, at least if you're a small SMME, obviously if you're a large NPO, we would like to see a bit more formal documents from you. So just bear in mind that we will review your evidence of your activities based on the size of your organization. If you'd like further information in terms of what kinds of documents these need, this is specified at a higher level within the call itself. Of course, with the presentation, we've got a lot of information to give you and very limited time, so I've tried to summarize it for you as best as possible. But of course, if you have further questions with regards to these kinds of things, then we can address them at the end of the session. I'm just trying to check. Okay, all right. Sorry, bear with me a sec. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so if you are going to apply, you will see the link for the forms in the call for expression of interest. The forms look like this. They're quite similar. You'll notice that one is orange and one is green, so do just make sure you are looking at the right one. For sub-grantees or micro-grantees, we are assessing them separately, and so there are separate forms for that. Most of the forms are very simple. We have a question. You'll see there's a little star there to indicate that it's required, and you just type out your response. Some of the questions are multiple choice, and you select your options. So you can just click on that button, and then you push submit at the end of the form. If you don't know how to submit an online form, then I'm very happy to sit with some of you guys towards the end of the session and go through that afterwards, because I understand not everybody may be as computer savvy as others. So please don't be scared or let the technology stop you from wanting to apply. We are here to support you if you need some help working through that. So we did discuss what documents you would need to submit to us via the IKI SG email address. One of the key documents is a budget template. So basically what we want to understand here is what kind of staff are going to be on the program. We are looking at understanding, you're going to have a finance person. Are you going to have a project manager? What kind of capacity support is going to be included here? That is your internal operational expenses in terms of your staff. You'll then go and submit other internal operational expenses, and those include things like your travel, stationery, consumables, other things that internally you need to operate on. And there is opportunity for you to apply for some of that. So the other item is external operating expenses. So if you are going to be conducting contracting service providers or whatever consultants, things like that you need to pay for services on, this is where you would put that. So if you are a sub-grantee, an aggregating organization, you might be employing clearing teams. So that's where you could put your external operating expenses. And then within capital expenses, that is referring to equipment, infrastructure, tools, and other project consumables as well. So essentially what you just do is you add a brief description, you put the amount that you would like to request in this section here. And if you have any co-financing, that means your own contributions to the program, those could be in cash or in kind. In cash is money that you're putting towards. In kind is times and internal stuff that's not considered cash contributions, but may have a value to it. Then you will just tally everything together. We have preset formulas on these, so please don't adjust the formulas, and please do check that your totals are tallying with a total at the bottom as well. Each section Each line has a total at the end, and each section has a total at the end. The total overall is added through all the sections. So you can just double check to make sure that you're not skipping anything and that the totals are adding up. I hope everyone is okay with that. If you don't know how to complete it, I'd be more than happy to go through at a more detailed level with you after the session. All right, everybody. So now let's quickly move forward to the sandboxing phase. So once we've received your applications, we will go through a screening process, which will basically just screen out anyone who's definitely not eligible for the program or their work is very much outside of the scope. That basic level of screening. We'll be doing some basic checks on your supporting documents to make sure that we can actually give you grant money. Otherwise, what's the point? And that's what the supporting documents are for. Once we've gone through the screening, we will select some top applicants, and then we will put together and contact those top applicants. They will enter then a pre-screening and sandboxing phase. The idea of the sandboxing phase is that all potential grantees, they have to attend the sandboxing phase. It's non-competitive. There may be some kind of pitch involved, but essentially the idea is to develop your initial ideas together with the ecosystem of actors and with SSN to provide support and ensure that the entire program scope is then developed in a functional way. So we're going to strengthen our design concepts, and then we'll also support you with your final proposal development and submission of your final project budget. So there will be a collaborative and supportive stage. Please note that if you are pre-selected, it doesn't mean you're getting the grant. The sandboxing phase is what really finalizes that. And of course, we can only onboard participants if they pass due diligence checks, etc. So what are we going to do in the sandboxing phase? What is it all about? So we'll bring everybody together. We'll see where their place is within the value chain. We'll see where there are opportunities to collaborate, where there's opportunities for synergies and innovation within the ecosystem of actors. Remember, we're trying to work out business models that are going to work. We're trying to figure out value chains that are going to function and offer mutual support for you. So all those things need to be sort of hashed out within the sandboxing phase. We'll also be working to develop and strengthen our project design, identify your organizational and capacity building needs, and testing various approaches to the clearing, the biomass, and the incentivizations for landowners to contribute in the value chain. Then we'll do the final proposal developments and the budget, and moving after onboarding would be due diligence checks and contracting, and only once contracts are signed are you considered an official grantee. So let's quickly move forward now to some key considerations and requirements. So please note that grants can only be used for project-specific, pre-approved, evidenced costs. What does that mean? If you are applying and you ask and you've spent money on a new BMW, unfortunately that is not relevant to the project scope. We've not pre-approved. We certainly wouldn't pre-approve BMWs, and we probably also wouldn't have received any procurement documentation on that. So you need to go through a proper procurement process for things that you are buying, and we need to approve them. They need to be relevant to your project. The kinds of things that you can put into your budget, we've discussed that. You've got your OpEx or operational expenses. Those are categorized as your internal as well as external, and then capital expenses. So you will be able to use the grant money to support your activities around those elements. What grants can't be used for. So please note, everybody, that this is not unrestricted funding. You can't use it to subsidize general business operations. You can't put it into a profit. All these bits of money need to be coming into a separate bank account and used only for the program. So you can't use that money for profit. If you are a profit generating entity, so you're an SMME, that doesn't mean you can't have a grant. We know that your aim is to make money. What we're basically saying is it can't just be used for claiming it as unrestricted income or to subsidize your general business use. If you've got debt, fines, those kinds of things, you cannot use the money to pay for your financial liabilities. And of course, once again, if it's not related to the specific project, the grants agreements and the agreed budget, it will not be approved. Then please note that you cannot use any of the funding for activities or products that are stipulated in the exclusion criteria. We'll go through that later. And then remember that we have a procurement protocol, and of course, during onboarding, all of this training will be given to you. So this is just a very high-level summary of everything. We will provide further information to you later on if you are moving forward. So in terms of the things that we are looking for, what are we going to be assessing people on? So you have to have legal status in South Africa with verifiable supporting documents. You have to provide some evidence of your good standing. We have to see that you have some form of governance structure and ability to manage the money that you are asking for and deliver the activities. That also fits into your financial capacity. We need to know that you can keep records, submit documents, follow procurement processes, etc. We also want to know that you fit within the landscape that we're focusing on and that your work contributes to the aims of the program. We also want to see that you are willing to participate in the sandboxing in sort of looking at innovative approaches, and that you will be happy to receive and would like to receive some capacity support. And then there'll also be a basic requirement for you to be collecting a little bit of data, reporting back to us, those kinds of things. And so it's very important that you have the capacity to do so. Please note that there are slightly more stringent requirements for sub-grantees due to the grant amount and level of responsibility than what the micro-grantees have. But you can check out all those requirements on the call itself. Let's quickly move forward now to, I'm just checking my timing. Let's quickly move forward now to what are your responsibilities within the program. So we mentioned that you'll have to set up a separate bank account, that we want active participation. We want people to collaborate, contribute towards a collaborative landscape approach. So that means sharing lessons, insights, providing us with feedback, all that kind of stuff. It's a collaborative approach, and we are open to feedback and learning. That is really a key part of the program. And there'll also be a lot of field coordination that's going to be needed. So you'll have to be able to allow us access to property, land, those sort of things, and also for us to come and do monitoring and evaluation as well. So there will be a lot of coordination that is necessary. And then, of course, you will be responsible for managing the grants transparently and appropriately. So please bear that in mind. And then we'll need to ensure that all your operations are safe and compliant. So we will be doing some sort of assessment and understanding where there are risks and how to mitigate them through the sandboxing and contracting and throughout the program in terms of capacity support. All right, so just if we look at the different elements of the grant, sub-grantees are really going to be coordinating the clearing and maintenance, contracting and supervising SMEs or service providers that are under clearing and maintenance contracts with them, managing relationships, managing the equipment and the assets, and then ensuring that they can consolidate monitoring and evaluation data for us. Micro grantees, which are probably smaller, will probably be focusing more on delivering their work, but they will also have a responsibility of managing whatever funds and equipment are provided to them responsibly, and they will also be required to do some basic level of tracking and reporting on your progress, your outputs, and your milestones. And in terms of financial management, everybody, I think we've gone through quite a few of the key things, but just to reiterate, you will need to keep your financial records. That's receipts, quotes, proof of payments, that kind of stuff. You also will need to to be keeping some monitoring and evaluation data. We have a procurement protocol which needs to be followed and is going to be overseen by South North. So we will onboard you in terms of what those specific requirements are. And please ensure that in terms of your operations, you're not using any prohibited substances or conducting any activities that are in the exclusion criteria. It's very important. GIZ are very strict around introduction of non-approved biological agents or GMOs into areas, and we'll go more into detail around the environmental sort of stuff later. All right, so there's some basic stuff, guys. We need to ensure that we're working safely. We will be providing capacity support on these kinds of things. The basic principles we need to remember in this is that we should be looking through our work to do no harm and not create any additional risk or harm to the environments or the people that we are there to serve and support. In terms of this, we should look into ensuring that there's no child or forced labor, that we're respecting community rights and avoiding conflict with Indigenous societies, and ensuring that any accidents and injuries, etc., or risks are reported promptly through to us. And of course, we need to abide by the international and global and national laws as well. In terms of the key elements of the program of supporting women, we are committed to trying to support and enable increased participation and benefit sharing for marginalized groups. And so we will be implementing action plans with our grantees to look at how we can include people like that more, looking at sort of key policies and things that we can implement so that by the end of the program, we have got some results on that to report back on. All right, let's quickly get through to the exclusion criteria. So guys, there is quite a lot of items listed on this exclusion criteria. There is simply no time for me to go through each and every single item on the exclusion list. And again, that's why I've said, if you maintain the principle of doing no harm, and are aware of what you are doing, you need to know if you are conducting certain activities, are there risks involved with that? Specifically within your programs, there are activities and there are products which are not eligible for grant funding. You may not use them or allow your contractors to use them. None of that money is to be spent on the things that fall outside of the permitted use. So again, we don't have a lot of time to go through these things, but just focusing really in terms of the project scope. Key things to aware is that when we're doing restoration work, we should not be destroying that area further. We should also ensure that we're not contributing to the spread of more alien invasive species or any deforestation of primary or indigenous forests. There are no living modified organisms permitted for use within the program. So if you're thinking about using some GMO technology, that's unfortunately outside the scope. Other things are really around the use of pesticides and biological control measures. So please note that if anything is considered a persistent organic pollutant, ozone depleting substance, if it's hazardous, toxic, or is included in the phase-out or prohibition bans, that we will not be able to support any procurement or use of those products within the program. Sorry, I skipped one here. We've already gone through that. All right, everybody. So please just make sure that you have checked out the exclusion list in terms of products. Because we know we're working a lot within clearing, people often use biocides and things like that, or herbicides. Here are some common ones. So just bear in mind, if you are aware of what's in your products, you'll need to go through your product lists. And if they are on that exclusion list, you will not be able to use them in the program. You'll need to let us know if you're intending on using these kinds of products, pesticides and all that, herbicides. you'll have to give us the names of those products, but also a list of all the active ingredients so that we can check that your products don't fall within that. Please note there are exceptional cases where certain items or active ingredients may be used, but these will only be taken on a case-by-case basis. They don't apply to everything on that list, and you'll need to really know your stuff to kind of come to us and say, well, we'd like to be on the exclusion list in terms of that. Okay, sorry, there was a little bit of something strange that happened with my presentation there, but I think we've kind of got to the end of everything. I wanted to get through that as fast as possible, so I allowed you guys an opportunity to go through a question and answer section. So if now is an appropriate time, I think we can move forward to that. Stacey, you can unmute. Is there anything key that's come up, or should we just allow people to start raising hands?
Becca, we've been answering the questions quite diligently, both in the Q&A and the chat. Thank you, everybody, for these questions. I suppose if you feel that our responses have not provided you with enough clarity, or if you have additional questions, please do raise your hand and ask now. That would be great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stacey, and thank you for being so on it. Appreciate that. All right. So basically, if you've got a question, you can use the raise function at the top of your screen. I see that we have one here, Linda. Linda, I'm going to unmute you. Yes, Linda. You can unmute your mic now.
Sorry, that was an accidental hand. Carl already answered me just with regards to IKI's standard. They normally don't allow anyone with a revenue over 500,000 euros to apply for a small grant. So I was just wondering that, and I see you guys have negotiated around that, so that's terrific. But since I've got you, just from I think common knowledge for anyone who raises funds is that GIZ and IKI, it's very administratively heavy and burdensome, generally speaking. Will South North be doing anything to try and, as a middleman, mitigate this for the participants? Or can we expect business as usual in relation to these funds?
So you'll have noticed, Linda, that quite a bulky part of the text on this presentation has been with regards to the requirements and responsibilities. So, of course, we must firstly consider the fact that GIZ and IKI are using public money raised through tax in Germany to support development and climate change initiatives, and therefore they have a responsibility of ensuring that that money is used wisely, efficiently, effectively, and transparently and ethically. And that responsibility is then, of course, put onto us, and we then also ensure that our grantees are working according to those same principles. As an intermediary, we are doing quite a lot of the administrative sort of functions, but there are also going to be responsibilities on our grantees, and that's sort of depending on what grant you're taking, you will have different levels of responsibilities, and those are indicated in the call as well. But we've gone through specifically what kinds of responsibilities you would have in terms of managing your funds properly, keeping records, providing data, ensuring you comply to the exclusions and the prohibited activities, etc. Does that help?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Anthony. Hi there, Anthony. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Rebecca. That was very clear. Anthony Black from Davenhawk's Conservancy. Just a question. If one wanted to sort of develop micro grantees in the process, I mean, that would be part of our plan. Presumably we just do that, but that would be obviously in our budget, within our budget process. And that would be part of our application, because these would be perhaps micro grantees which aren't actually in a position yet to apply as separate entities.
So essentially, Anthony, if you look at the eligibility and sort of who are you, in order to apply for money, you do need to be already active in some degree and have some sort of experience. You also need to be able to show that you have got the ability to manage any grant money distributed to you. So once again, IKI and GIZ have got quite strict guidelines around who we're allowed to give money to. And so we have developed the grants architecture to try and enable us to do that. But also please bear in mind that we are selecting and then we are moving forward with the program. There's no sort of other selection of other grantees done.
Yes, I understood. Sure, thanks.
Throughout the program. Yeah. Of course, we are also looking to support small businesses as well. So I also just want to say, like, in your opportunity, in your application form, there's an opportunity for you to say, look, we've got this like far left field idea. Could that fit within the scope, And we do want to remain adaptable and flexible in terms of what's going to be a development of the best ecosystem as well. So feel free to send queries and things, or just advise us of your ideas in your application form. All right. I don't, oh, there you go. It's all listed. Thanks, Anthony. I hope that helps. Philip. Hi there, Philip. You can unmute yourself. Okay. Philip, you're free to talk. You just need to unmute your microphone. Hi there.
Hi, Rebecca. I might have missed it at the start because I was a bit late getting onto the meeting. Apologies for that. I was just wondering if it is all restricted within the Hessequa municipality. Are you working towards an ultimate goal vision for what the Hessequa municipality will look like with regards management of invasive alien species? In the future, I don't see any of that in the documents that I've had a vision of, sight of.
So the grantees that we onboard must be within the Hessequa municipality, yes. Unfortunately, at the moment, we need to focus in terms of how we're going to track impact across a coordinated system of actors. It's going to be much more difficult to do with people in different ecosystems, landscapes, all that kind of stuff. So we have tried to keep it quite focused initially. If through the results of the call for expression of interest we need to expand, we are open to potentially looking at that. But for now, we really want to focus specifically on the locations indicated in the document that I've provided.
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand that the grantees must come from the region. I was just wanting to understand what vision there is for whether there is a plan as to where the end point will be, or where you will have achieved what you hope to achieve within the municipality. Is there a document that states this is where we hope to be with regards to biological invasions in the Hessequa municipality by 2040, 2050, or are we just working, let's just clear aliens and beneficiate the biomass? That was more the question. Yeah.
Yes, certainly. So I know you'd mentioned you weren't in the initial section of the presentation, so I'll just quickly go a bit back for you. But what we're trying to really achieve by the end of the program, we've got our indicators, but we are also looking at using this whole project to really test, refine, pilot, understand, gather knowledge and inputs, and then at the end of the program, we will be producing a scientific journal article to document approaches on alien invasive plant management, We'll also be doing a published report on the grant mechanism and clearing techniques, landowner documents and enterprise toolkit documents, policy briefs, etc. So we are not just wanting to do this 3-year program and then leave. There is definitely a wider vision in terms of us positioning ourselves so that we can further scale, replicate in other areas potentially as well at wider national level or wherever, so we are certainly not just looking at it like we just want to clear the 600 hectares and that's all we want to achieve. We want to use this to grow capacity of our organizations so that we can also potentially position them for future funding opportunities as well. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, how many of the 600, what percentage of the 600 hectares, well, what percentage of the Hessequa municipality is the 600 hectares and how were those 600 hectares identified? It's that sort of question that I'm trying to get to the bottom of is what are we working towards for the Hessequa municipality? I mean, yeah. But never mind. I thought there might have been a plan for what the Hessequa municipality wants the situation to look like after the project, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Do you mean at a government municipal level?
Well,
or are you
no, I mean
referring to us generally as a landscape?
At a landscape level, what do you want at the end of it? I mean, 600 hectares cleared might be too ambitious or might not be ambitious enough, or is it really the right goal to be focusing on? But maybe I just need to do some more reading about Hessequa municipality and how it's planning to manage its invasive alien plant problem.
Certainly. So, Philip, the Hessequa municipality does actually have policy documents both on climate change, biodiversity, alien and invasive plant management, etc. We have looked at those documents. We've met with the municipality. We are hoping to continue to engage with them and increase involvement with them throughout the program as well.
Can you share those documents with the people on this call?
The policy documents from Hessequa municipality are available through their website, but I'm sure that we could find a way to get you some further information. They are available through the municipality themselves.
Okay, thanks.
Just make a note of that for you, Philip. Is anyone else interested in receiving those? I suppose other people have their hands up. All right. All right, let's move then. Yes, hello, Guy. Nice to see you here.
Hi. Thanks so much for the information. It's really clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question relating to what would a successful program look like, and it looks to me as though through the sandboxing approach, you could sort of put together a mosaic of proposals to achieve the bigger outcome. I wonder if that's one of the ideas behind the story, and in other words, that individual proposals wouldn't be trying to hit every single one of those points about what a successful program would look like, because it's quite a broad range of success indicators there.
Yes.
So, if that is the strategy, how we might put forward, a proposal that involves the work that we've been doing on beneficiating alien biomass through biochar, but also into the restoration aspect, because I think restoration is a little bit more complicated than just clearing and hoping things are going to happen. So and a little bit on the science and the sort of fundamental understanding that's required. I see you want to have a scientific journal on approaches, but if you want to do something sustainable, clearly you need a strong understanding of how that vegetation is going to bounce back. So that my question really is this a mosaic approach, and could we put in a proposal that, fits us into some sort of space with a slightly stronger fundamental science support function? Basically that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Guy. Yes, so essentially, in terms of a mosaic approach, we certainly are not expecting one individual organization to be able to meet the entire aims of this program individually, which is why we are working towards collaborating and coming up with this ecosystem of actors, each with their own role to play and contribution, but also with mutual benefit. So certainly your proposal doesn't need to speak to the entire program. We've certainly sort of made you aware of what we're trying to achieve as SSN, but each person will have, or each entity will have their own role and contribution to play. So if you are sort of in one little section, don't feel that you need to answer and solve the world's problems. Focus on what you do, what you need support on, and where you can contribute within your field of work. So there will be multiple applications sent in. We'll look at how the applications kind of fit together in terms of coordinated landscape approach, and that's how we will select participants based on that. Stacey, are you happy? Do you want to add in anything on that one?
So Rebecca, I do, but I'm actually going to give the floor to Carl, who has requested in the chat to give an answer to Philip. So I've allowed him to unmute his mic. So Carl, please go ahead.
Brilliant, thanks.
Thanks. So Philip, I've given you a quick response, but the purpose here, 650 hectares is a tiny spot in the bigger scheme of things within even the smaller area of Hessequa. So that is not the intention at all. It's really about developing a completely different model. So we all know that all of us involved in alien clearing have looked at how we've done it. Government spent huge amounts of money. The one thing that seems to me that we're not doing is we're not giving the opportunity for landowners to engage meaningfully through a financing mechanism that tackles the problem in the long term. So in very broad terms, the opportunity to look at this as infrastructure finance, or as you would infrastructure finance. So the amortization model of the costs over a minimum of 5 years, but probably longer, would be some of the outcomes that we would like to see, and then commercial financing available for that outcome. But listen, we're all experimenting with different ideas and different models. And of course, public land is very different to the land that we're targeting, which is generally privately held. It's not generally agriculturally viable land that we're targeting. It's within a biodiversity hotspot, but it's unlikely to be ever plowed up and planted for wheat or other monocrop. So the scalability of what we're doing rests around the approach, and particularly the financing approach, rather than some particular magic that we're doing in terms of the actual clearing. I hope that helps.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Carl. All right, everybody. Charles. Hello, Charles.
Yes, good morning, everybody, or just a minute before afternoon. I would clearly suggest and do a request that before we go much further, we'll have to circulate the map indicating the exact area that's under discussion. I think that will eliminate quite a lot of questions to show exactly what is the area which we are referring to, where the grant money can be utilized. That's that. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Charles. I was actually thinking about putting a map on the introduction documents as well. The Cape Limestone fynbos area is really quite limited to, a thin strip across the coast between the, Stacey, help me out here, the Breda River and the?
Well, Witstrand and Gouders River.
Yes,
Yeah,
those, thank you. So we are really looking at specifically around there, and we know that there are other ecosystems within that area. As I said, we want to be initially quite focused, but we also want to be flexible as well. So if you are not specifically in the limestone fynbos, but you are in Hessequa, just send us information and we'll see if we can make it work.
Rebecca,
I think we should.
Just
Sorry.
to add, Charles, unfortunately, we haven't got an exact map of where our implementation activities are currently happening. What we can say, however, is that it will be between Stilbaai and it will be between Witsundt. So Witsundt, Stilbaai, it's about a 65 to 75 kilometer stretch of coastline, and we will be extending about 10 kilometers inland. With the information pack that we will send out after this session, we will include a map so that you can have a visual idea of what we're talking about. But an important thing, and this is what Rebecca was mentioning, and I just want to highlight because a few people have asked it. While we say that the implementation of the project activities will be in this area, if you are based outside of this area, you can still apply so long as you are able to implement the project within that region. So if, for example, you are based in Somerset West, closer to Cape Town, but you are able to extend your activities to that target region, you may still apply. So that's a big thing to understand, and we will share a map in the info pack. I hope that you can be patient with us, Charles.
No, definitely patient regarding that. I do understand your explanation 100%, but
Thank
that's
you.
exactly what you explained now as well, is the area between Witsundt and Stilbaai. You can identify 6,000 hectares of limestone fynbos in that area. So that is what I think. I understand the scope that you can increase the area, but I think we should stay exactly to what the actual grant funding is dedicated for the limestone fynbos region. Just keep that in mind as well.
Okay. No,
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Charles.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charles. All right. Luke. Hi, Luke. You're a bit soft, Luke. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't know if your speaker's really low, but you're really soft.
Is this any better?
Slightly. We'll just pay more attention.
Sorry about that. How about, is this a little bit better?
There you go. Thank you.
Exceptional. 2026. I just had a more process question, and thank you to Amanda for answering the first part of that. It was about applications for subgrantees as a partnership. I understand that is possible, so multiple MPOs or other kinds of organizations grouping together to apply. I did wonder, though, the online application, which I assume is the only form through which we can apply, is fairly restrictive in the way that it allows you to fill out questions. So if one is applying, or if a group is applying as multiple organizations, how would SSN like to receive those answers within, kind of text boxes which don't really allow that, which for multiple answers?
Thanks, Luke. Yes, it's always a challenge because what we've tried to do is to, create a simple application process, which a form is always, Microsoft Forms are always fantastic for, but at the same time, there's restrictions. So it has been something that I spent quite a lot of time trying to figure out how to make it, how to make it work for people. And we know that there are certain restrictions around the form. So if you are going to be applying as a consortium, you are absolutely permitted to do that. You could put that into your description documents. If there's going to be more than one, you'd obviously need to send your multiple registration documents for your consortium approach. So if you have one main person listed on your form in terms of this is our organization name, you can come up with a consortium name if you want to, or you can apply under one banner and then just let us know in your description that these are the organizations. And you can also send me an email and send one to the IKI SG email when you submit your supporting documents. You're welcome to put some explanation notes in there, but please try and limit it, as of course we need to go through probably quite a few proposals. So if there's key information that we need with your supporting documents, just drop us a line and let us know. Does that help? Great, thank you, Luke. Elian, hi there, Elian, how are you doing? I have granted you access. You should just be able to.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Hi.
Sorry, I thought someone was ahead of me on the line, but thank you. I just had a question, and sorry to go back to sort of the previous thing we were talking about, but I just wanted to get clarity. So on one hand, you've picked a very narrow area and a specific area you want us to work, but in the same time, as Carl said, you want creativity and innovations and new models, and there are players in Hessequa that have effective and good models that are working. And so I'm just wondering if you are limiting the options in terms of something that could work, if you are effectively restricting people to a small area. And to get alien clearing to work, you need a magic combination of players, and those players may or may not be in that space. So it's the right landowners, it's the right type of people. And if we're looking for models to sustain alien clearing, we need to be flexible in terms of getting that combination, not just in one very narrow space. So I'm just wondering, are there scenarios in which you may consider broadening from that narrow band?
Thank you very much. Yes, and I can see there's quite a few stakeholders that have asked the same question to us. And this is why we are saying we want to remain flexible, because we receive your feedback, we've heard what you've said, and we then want to apply that to ensure that we do get the right players with the right capacities and that we can deliver on impact. So please note once again, everybody, that if you are not specifically in that 10-kilometer strip, but you are doing alien invasive clearing, you're doing fynbos restoration, is the scope of work that you're doing in terms of what we presented to you today, do you fit within that? And then send your application. The only thing I said is that if you're in Limpopo or somewhere else, that's a little bit too far for us. So let's keep it to Hessequa and show us what value you would bring to the aims of the program. We will consider your application. Does that help, Elian? You good?
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, Michael. Hi there, Michael. You should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I certainly can. Hi there.
Hi, I just concur with what Aileen has just said, and Charles. If you look at the current work that's happening in Hessequa, pretty much all of it is happening in the Langeberg mountain range, in the strategic water catchment, with dedicated landowners who are protecting their land. And I asked the question, and Carl said, no, the Langeberg is out of this project. And it's quite confusing. You guys are saying, if you're outside of that narrow band, what are your expertise, and come and work in the band? But what we are asking, and I think what Aileen is also asking, is if there is a dedicated project already happening with a track record in Hessequa, but it's not on that coastal band, it's against the Langeberg mountain ranges, it's critical, it's sustainable, it's been doing the work for a decade, are you saying that won't fit your requirements? Because that's kind of what I'm understanding, that you only want work in the limestone area. Because please, can you give us clarity on that? Thanks.
Can I come in there?
Sorry, so just to come back to you, Michael, as we've tried to sort of clarify in this session today, our initial aim of the program was to focus on the Cape Limestone fynbos area. There's not a lot of work going on there. Carl will add his input here as well. But just to summarize, if you are within the Hessequa municipality and you're doing fynbos restoration within the Hessequa municipality, we will consider your application if you show what contribution you can make towards the aims of the program. Carl?
Yeah, I mean, we're stuck between a little bit of a rock and a hard place. So there's fantastic work happening in the Overberg, and if there's some particularly around biochar and other technologies that are being applied there, we would welcome an application from someone who's doing, a particular technology that's not currently applied in our area that might be usefully utilized on our biomass in the target area. So that's clear that we want to see applicants and we want to bring in expertise from outside of this area to apply ourselves to the problem in our area. Then we've got this problem of spreading ourselves too thin. And how do you kind of, one of the things about what we're hoping to do is to build up momentum amongst landowners who are adjacent or close to each other to motivate landowners to participate in the scheme and the financing of that scheme. I was very concerned that particularly where there are big programs happening, that our particular idea around financing might step on the toes of existing programs. So the work happening in the Langeberg, some of that I'm aware of, is sometimes funded by land care. They take a 20% contribution from the landowner. We want 100% contribution from landowners, amortized over time and discounted by virtue of the fact that we've got some revenue generating potential. But we want 100%, the landowner to accept 100% of those costs. It's not areas of massive public good in the sense of water catchment. And arguably with water catchment, there's a much greater public good and therefore a greater portion of public subsidy should be applied. So I think we just need to tread carefully and engage around the objectives. Look at the very big objectives. Forget the land mass that we're targeting or the particularity of limestone fynbos. Think about the key objectives, and if we can add to those key objectives, which is not alien clearing, right? It's about the model for alien clearing. If we can add to those objectives by doing some work or contributing or working in the Langeberg or elsewhere in the region, and in fact, for that matter, in further afield outside of Hessequa, then that's something that we should be considering. I just didn't want us to be treading on toes as a kind of key thing and trying to mix different models in the same geography, because that's confusing for our clients here being landowners and or public land. So within that parameter, if there's a contribution to be made that addresses this kind of need for a financing objective that makes sense, happy to talk about it specifically and to guide your application specifically if there's something that you think would be useful, or happy also if you just submit an application that we consider it on its merits in relation to the bigger objectives of our project. So, the specificity of the landmass that we're targeting was more about that than trying to those issues, apparently. So more specifically about trying to address those issues than having a particular love for limestone fynbos as opposed to mountain fynbos.
Okay. Michael, we do just have a couple other questions. I would also suggest if you've got specific queries or want to contact us at South North, please do use my email or the IKI one and just drop us a line as well. Are you okay for now?
Great, thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. All right. Then we have Pride. Hi, Pride. Should be able to talk now, Pride, if you unmute your mic.
Yes, okay, yes. Good afternoon, Rebecca and Stacey. Is that Stacey I'm seeing there? Okay, great, awesome. This is Pride here from the Agriculture Research Council. We are a government parastatal research institution that primarily delivers scientific research. My interest is in biological control. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if I'm audible from my side. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can hear you.
Awesome. I'll try to be quick. I was following your presentation, a beautiful presentation, by the way. Okay, so you said that your interest is in, I think if I remember very well, you listed woody species, alien woody invasive species, And I think I saw that you mentioned 3 genuses. That is wattles and eucalypts. I think there's only 2. Is the scope also including other woody invasives that could be notorious in this particular zone, focal area, as it were? If you look at it, most of the alien invasive problems affecting the fynbos are usually from Australian. They're usually as a result of plant species that are indigenous to Australia. So most of the invasive problems are Australian in nature. Yeah. So that actually extends beyond just the 2 genuses that you gave us, which is the acacias and the eucalypts that you mentioned in your presentation. So I don't know if you'd be willing to entertain other woody perennials or invasives as well there. So that would be my first question. Yeah. Then my second question, you mentioned that
Pride, let me just answer that one first so that we don't lose track of things. It's just easier to address one question at a time.
Okay.
So just in terms of the scope, guys, you'll have noticed that I said examples, and really the focus is woody alien invasive species. And we know that there are certain kinds of very prolific ones within that area. We've given them as examples, but that's not a full list. So remember that one of the ideas is around beneficiating it. So we're focusing on the woody ones because those are also really big on the fire hazard side. And that's where we want to also focus on doing, value adding activities. But any alien invasive woody plant is included in terms of clearing generally. When clearing teams are going out, they're not like, right, we're just going to cut down the specific thing. We're looking at clearing the land. So yes, it does apply to other kinds of woody invasives as well.
Oh, okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. Because I see you guys are being specific to the Hessequa region. So I'm thinking maybe you're also very specific also on the type of alien invasive vegetation that you are interested in. My second question is, I'm into biological control, and it involves animal testing. I don't know which animals here you guys are excluding, because insects are animals if we were to look at it in the sense of the word. Before we can actually release any insect out there, it has to be tested in terms of its safety, its host specificity. So does your exclusion when you mention animal testing include this? Because then it means my expression of interest is dead on arrival already. So I just need to find out from here what you mean when you say animal testing.
That's a great question, Pride. So we have had a few different stakeholders contact us as well that are looking at doing biological control measures. Remember, firstly, GIZ has very strict protocols around what is and what isn't allowed. So it's our responsibility to then make sure that happens. In terms of their yes and no's, they will not accept any introduction of any non-native, non-pre-existing or introduced biological control measures. That means that if you have gone through a research and development phase where you've had to go and get, you have to go through that process of approval with governments, etc., and that you're then allowed to release these insects out into those environments, then you will have some documentation to show that they're approved for release. Within the Hessequa region, there have been quite a lot of different biological control measures. So we are aware that there are already existing funguses, insects, etc., that have already been released into that area. And so all that you would need to tell us is, these are the kinds of biological controls we're looking at using. Here's our documentation, and that's what we would love to do. Does that make sense?
Okay, all right. So in other words, okay, there won't be any pre-release testing grants that will be approved on your side if we are thinking of maybe importing another potential candidate from Australia that we think will do the job on a particular species. Your grant does not extend to that scope. New releases, new introductions.
If it's not approved for release and hasn't already been released, then unfortunately, no.
Okay, okay, all right. Okay, so thanks for that clarification. My third question is, also us being a research institution, we do train a lot of capacity. So in other words, we work with students at various universities, we train PhDs, masters. Does your grant cover things like staff salaries, bursaries, is it correct?
So, in your, sorry, the line wasn't too clear there. I think you were talking about what can we put into our budgets?
Yes, okay, yeah, okay, let me repeat again. I said, look, we also work with universities. It's part of our mandate as an institution, we train capacity. So we train students, we involve them in our projects, and then they come up with master's degrees or PhD degrees, depending on the level of the work that they've done. So I wanted to find out things like staff salaries, bursaries, registration fees. Is that covered? Is that a prohibited or allowed expense item on the budgets? Do you guys cover that?
So staff salaries are certainly part of your internal operating expenses, and you can apply for funding to cover the costs for you to deliver a program within that. Bearing in mind that it's not unrestricted, so we need to see, well, you need a project manager, an accountant, or whatever you need. It needs to, tally with what you're asking to do. In terms of bursaries and paying for research to be undertaken, this is a little bit of a gray area at the moment. We had decided to in-house the research function. Stacey is the research coordinator on the program, but we're also aware that there's a whole bunch of other people with knowledge and things that they, be great to contribute. So we'll be discussing after the program in terms of the role of the Critical Friends group and what that's going to look like, and we'll be communicating that out to you. We had a discussion yesterday around a research sort of work. Again, if you want to do specifically research and it's not a pre-existing activity, you'd be probably less likely to get a grant on that. Because if you look at the scope of who we are supporting in terms of the grant architecture, you'll understand who we're looking to support. But please do feel free to submit an application highlighting, where your area of concern is or whatever, what you want to do with it, and we will consider that. But research function is really within the scope of the SSN team. Stacey, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I'd like to add is actually on Pride's previous two questions. The area that we are looking at is predominantly invaded with Australian acacia cyclops, and we do know of 2 biological control agents that are currently operating on them. But yes, we unfortunately would not be able to fund any new introductions. In terms of the funding for research, please just have a look at the budget template and see what you can do with that. And if you are confident that your idea is a good one, submit an application, and we'd love to read and see what you have to offer. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think let's please. Hello, sorry, I think I've been unmuted. I've been muted. Okay, just 2 more questions. The procurement protocols. Obviously, we have our own SCM, and I think on one of your slides, you were like, you would like to approve certain things. How does your supply chain system then link up with our own SCM systems here? Do you give us full autonomy, and then all you just need is reports from us as to how we spent your money? How do we intersect here when it comes to the actual use of the monies? I know you spoke about you need to get receipts and all the nitty-gritty. Will you guys then be doing the expenditure on our behalf? Will we be using, because you said that you are going to be training, providing some kind of training. I don't know if this extends to supply chain. systems as well, because we do have our own supply chain management system or ERP system, as it were.
Okay. So just in terms of spending, you would request grant money, you would show us this is when I need to spend it, and as you are ready to start spending that money, you would be requesting those amounts of money for us. That would be according to your approved budget. We will distribute or disperse that money out to you, and then you will need to report back to us in terms of how it's been spent. We do have a procurement process and a procurement protocol, and during onboarding for the selective grantees, we will go through specific procurement processes with them, as well as financial onboarding and training in terms of what's required. So that's just in terms of how you spend the money. You will spend your grant money yourself, but you need to be showing transparent and fastidious use of that in terms of your receipts and all of that. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay, no, it does. I think the other question then we'll probably then discuss that on the side in due course. It had to do with the research component, because biocontrol, in as much as your focus is on beneficiation, alien clearing, and all that. When you look at the management of alien invasives, it's hard to invoke any other method of management that can actually result in more long-term sustainable environments other than biological control. And you need to keep in mind that biological control doesn't work like a bomb where you just put the insects there and then they start doing their thing. It's long-term. You need to actually give the insects time to establish. Some are already in the environment, but they're still at the phase where they're still being evaluated. Are they achieving what they've been intended for? Things like that, which is where the research comes into play. Because if you focus on just clearing and restoration without something that basically manages the ecosystem, then I can almost certainly say that you will be dealing with this 50 million years to come. It needs to be integrated with science for you to have bang for your buck, basically. But yeah, I think we can always, iron out those matters when the time comes. But just keep that in the back of your mind that you cannot expect to operate outside the scientific part or the science side of trying to achieve what you guys are trying to achieve. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, Pride, which is why core elements of our program is on the research function and gathering data, evidence, etc., around the different approaches. Please also bear in mind that this presentation is a summarized version of what's on the call, and within clearing and maintaining biological control measures are included within that. So it's not that we're excluding them, we just consider them part of a clearing or maintenance approach. Where it comes to alien clearing, they are not excluded as long as they are approved for release and have already been released in South Africa or within the Western Cape, because they should be able to then, we could say they've spread naturally, Also, it's a tricky thing when delivering a program because we've only got 3 years of our grants, and it's always tricky to try and balance all the different ideas and all the different important inputs into creating one sort of meaningful project. And we're trying to bring together a collaborative ecosystem of actors with different solutions, different values and inputs into it. But of course, we can't do everything in 3 years. So, it just bear in mind that it's always a bit of a push and a pull in terms of what SSN is able to promise and deliver. And we want to make sure that it's achievable as well. Okay. Thank you so much, Pride. I appreciate your very insightful questions. Okay, we have a Diangwenya. Sorry, I don't know what your first name is. Mr. or Miss Ngwenya, your mic is unmuted. We've got Ngwenya, D. Ngwenya. Your microphone is enabled. You can talk at will.
Okay, sorry.
Hi.
I thought you had unmuted it already. Okay, so I'm Dudungwenya. I think you've answered most of the questions that I wanted to ask, particularly in terms of if someone is a researcher and they wanted to maybe just access the sites that you'll be working on, since researchers are not listed on the people that could apply. So I wanted to check if a researcher could apply in their capacity or they needed to collaborate with the stakeholders that are listed there. But I think you've answered that since you say that your organization, the core function is particularly in research. And then my other question actually relates to what you just said, like seeing that your funding is only for 3 years, what happens afterwards? I mean, if you are going to clear and restore those areas and they are only managed for 3 years, who's going to take care of those cleared areas after 3 years, particularly for the public land? I think for landowners it's easier because you can just hand over the land back to them. But for public land, what will happen after the clearing in the 3 years? Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Sorry, I missed your first name there, but yeah, it's a great question. So once again, our development of this program is, get the ecosystem of actors, test, validate approaches, come up with documents, policy documents, journals, all that, so that we can have evidence to scale in future. And a core part of this is trying to get mechanisms in place that by the time the project is finished, guys that are conducting this kind of very vital work have access to other funding, not through granting, but potentially through other means, incentive measures, etc. So there's a whole bunch of ways in which we could and would like to go about getting the model put together. There's just sadly not enough time to go into that now, and the selected participants in the sandboxing will really be able to discuss and hash those things out a bit further. But certainly we understand that a lot of guys are reliant on grant funding for this kind of thing. We're hoping by the end of the program that we'll have other means of income to sustain this, and then also capacitizing you guys and positioning the grantees for future scaling is a key part of it, so that they can have access to additional financing and support after the program as well. So it's both about independence and ability to capacitize to get future funding. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay? And then in terms of the research one, as we'd said, a bit of a gray area, but if you really want to, if you think it works and you want to apply, submit an application, and we'll see if it fits within the scope of the program. Thank you so much, very much. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, hi. I know Carl has already chatted to this. Thanks, Bex. I'm very concerned about this 100% funding by landowners. All the existing models in the area, it hasn't been trialed, and 99% of landowners are farmers, and most of us can't afford to 100% pay for things. Given that we've only got 4 or 5 days before the cutoff, how do you expect people to submit proposals and already have landowners on board when this hasn't been done before, and we are expecting landowners to pay 100% with the hope that somehow we're going to create some model to get some money back over a period of 5 years? It just sounds really, really strange. And it hasn't been trialed, it hasn't been done, and no one has had the time to go to the landowners to say, hey, are you going to spend the millions of rands that you guys are asking for, which is going to cost to clear on the land over a 3-year period? And maybe you can extend the time for proposals so that these conversations can be had with the landowners in the area. And maybe Carl, you can speak to this, or Bex. It's just a really strange thing you're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And I know that you have, we've had previous discussions as well around that, and that's what I'm saying is that we hear you. just refocus a little bit in terms of information. Look at the call for proposals and what we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to have landowners that are willing to pay 100% of the fees up front or anything before the projects are started. These are kinds of things that we're wanting to test and see if we can get more contributions from landowners by incentivizing them through different ways through the program. But that is not specified in the call for proposals. So we're not forcing you guys to work around that right now or to be there right now. All we want to know, this is a very light touch call for expression of interest stage, is who are you, what do you do, what's your contribution? We're not looking at getting a full understanding of a business model approach and how that's going to work at this stage. Those things will be hashed out during the sandboxing phase. We, of course, have ideas around how we can reach a stage where we have better financial sustainability. But the sandboxing will be a collaborative approach where it's not models forced onto you. It is discovering through evidence what's going to work best. Does that help a little bit, Michael?
Yeah, I understand you. I'm just know the area really well. I know the NGOs who work in this space, and I'm just a little bit worried you're going to get very few people who are going to be able to do what you're asking for. And that's just a little bit of a concern, given the range that you want to work in and given the way you're thinking about this mechanism of funding. But thank you for all of that. I do appreciate it. I'm just sharing my frustrations and concerns.
No, absolutely. And, you know, that's why I said to you, I really wanted you to know that we hear the concerns that have been raised and that they certainly are being considered throughout the design of the program. And we will sort of figure out in terms of what business models are going to be the most viable and what opportunities there are to raise your, as grantees, incomes from sources to continue your work. That's really the main goal, isn't it? How can we continue to clear? How can we get, you know, money to do that? And SSN's role will certainly be around investigating the best methods and approaches for that. Carl?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think that the starting point here is that while we rely on public funding and on donor funding in particular, you know, funding from the German government to do our clearing, we will continue to lose the battle. There's just no amount of public funding that has in the past, and in spite of Treasury's heavy investment, made much of a dent on our alien invasive problem. So call me old-fashioned, but I don't think we're going to crack this problem unless we find a financial solution. And I know I'm not the first one to suggest this, and I'm not suggesting that you haven't considered this conundrum. But we certainly cannot use German money in this instance to take out hectares of alien. That's not helping anybody. So I realize that there are different types of landowners, and this is kind of why commercial agriculture is trickier, and the location that we've chosen is specifically, for the most part, out of the commercial agricultural zone. And let's be clear, most farmers have cleared their land, certainly the land that's arable. What they probably struggle to clear is the kloof and the water catchment areas, but they've got a financial interest, or an interest in seeing those, as is there a public interest. So the reason that we chose the specific area is because in that area we believe there are landowners who are making an effort to clear. It's an important area from the floral kingdom perspective, as opposed to agriculture or water catchment. And we think that we can persuade landowners, well, they are currently putting up 100% of the cost, but they're doing so in a disorganized manner and not always in the sustained manner. And many of them struggle with that initial 2 years of cost in clearing. The costs of 50 1,000 rand per hectare approximately, followed up by 120 person days per hectare, picking seedlings after fire in year 2 and maybe half of that in year 3, and then down to, a much smaller amount thereafter. It's that fact that we're trying to build a financing model around. It won't be what every commercial farmer decides to tackle, or the way that they decide to tackle the problem. And as I said, in our area, the commercial farmers have largely tackled the problem. Who hasn't is the landowners, who are largely have no commercial intent, but they do have a day job and they do have financing. So I'm not suggesting that this is a financing model that solves South Africa's problem, not even Hessequa's problem. It solves a particular dilemma in a particular geography, which is particularly sensitive from an ecological perspective. I think we can learn something as to what that might mean if we solve it at that level for commercial agriculture and ultimately for public land, and how we cross-subsidize the clearing in public land, and the level of subsidy is going to increase. So starting with, the potential for 100% of cost to be absorbed by a landowner who takes stewardship seriously, great. If we don't get there, well, that's a lesson well learned. But in the target area that we're looking at, we think that we will get at least 650 hectares signed up, and probably a whole bunch more. Maybe in other areas that's not possible, but at least we're learning the financing model, rather than trying to push everybody into the exact same replica of the same model, which largely has been ineffective, which is the public funding, the once-off events, the reliance on landowners to pick up maintenance and not having any enforceability if they don't. I have particular sympathies for farmers. I have particular sympathies for large landowners, but I have very little sympathies for landowners who avoid their stewardship responsibilities in the target area.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right,
Rebecca.
guys. Thank you so much. Sorry to rush the ending there, but I'm just aware of time. So we have one more question, and then I'm afraid we are going to have to call it a day. I just wanted to get an indication of people. Is anyone here in this call not sure how to submit an application form, or how to put together the budget template? If you are one of those people, please raise your hands. Does anybody want any other additional support? Okay, we've got one person. All right, guys, so we are going to quickly summarize. We'll take that last question, and then I would like to turn my focus to providing a bit of support for those who need a bit of help on the actual application process itself. Elian?
Hello. Hi. So I just wanted to sort of try and conclude this with what Carl's saying. I know I just want to acknowledge that we all understand that the financing is a massive challenge. I don't think anybody is denying that, and we fully appreciate the initiative here to try and solve that. I just think you need to look at those of us that have been doing this for a very long time, have been thinking about it for an incredibly long time, and have been building up relationships and models that this may give us an opportunity to really explore those with landowners that have a level of commitment that have been tested. Because you guys obviously been thinking about this yourselves, got a great team there working on it, but 2 years or 3 years or 4 years is really not enough time to be starting from the beginning. You need to give an opportunity to bring those people in that have been doing this. And that's not just me, that's a lot of other people working for water, and I know you've spoken to them, but we're the ones that have been doing it, and we may be able to bring to the table really, really innovative financing mechanisms that may not work where you are, not because there's anything wrong with working where you want to work, but because we don't have those relationships, and building up those relationships take time. So I'm just asking that we, and it sounds like you're doing this, but that we recognize that we need to have people at the table that have really been doing this for a long time, and that might in the end give you more of the goals that you want through different financing and different outcomes. And I think that's what you're trying to do. And I just want to acknowledge that we understand it's not just about clearing aliens, but finding a model that can actually work, and there are different ways of doing it. So yeah, I just want to conclude with that.
Thank you, Aileen. And no, we certainly hear you, and I hope that through the session today, you'll see that it's not that we're trying to force models on people and we want to work collaboratively. It's very important that we also base whatever we do in the program on sound knowledge, and that we have a robust approach and expert input, and we are committed to those as well. So we hear you, we acknowledge you, and we also just want to say, congrats to all those guys out there that have been working really hard on this for a really long time, and we really hope that we can support you through this program to continue your work. All right. That said, we know that we've gone quite significantly over time. Question and answer can sometimes, it is just worth spending a bit of extra time with people. Thank you for those that have spent, have gone over their time allocations. We appreciate you. We hope the session I'm very dyslexic today. The session has been helpful for you. And that you guys, just want to wish you best of luck for going ahead and submitting your applications. Just a final note, everybody, just to kind of bring our attention back to the presentation quickly. These links are provided to you in the call documents, and they are also provided on this, which we will send out to you. They've got everything you need to look at if you want to find out more about IKI, SSN, the actual call, budget templates, and different ways to go about applying. If you want to review the application forms and allow yourself to pre-fill in info before going to the online thing, they are available for download here. So we hope that is helpful to you. Bearing in mind as well that we are waiting to see in terms of feedback from the first stage now of the call for expression of interest. If there's an extension that is going to be needed, we will do so, and we will communicate out to you as well. But I hope that's provided you with enough information to get to this application stage. And all the best of luck, and happy alien